Let's talk about Keir Starmer. He is still the Prime Minister, quite shockingly. I mean,
at time of recording.
At the time of recording. But in between now and the last time we discussed his future, Morgan McSweeney, his Chief of Staff, has resigned. Anas Sarwar, the leader of Scottish Labour, called for Starmer's resignation. Wes Streeting has always also been on manoeuvres. He may have orchestrated the Sarwar comments. He's been releasing his text with Peter Mandelson, which very subtly suggests that Keir Starmer doesn't have much of a vision or an economic programme or is giving anyone any reason to vote Labour. But yet he staggers on. Mark, what have you made of the past turbulent few weeks or so? I mean, it does feel as if Starmer is finished.
He's a man of reliably poor judgment. And it's quite clear that he knew what he was dealing with Mandelson when he appointed him as UK ambassador to the United States. But on policy, it's been a hot mess. The economy is absolutely flatlining.
Yeah.
The old enemy of unemployment is back, which is ironic from the Party of Working People. Inflation, which is a tax on everyone, especially the poor, is incredibly sticky. It's at almost double the Bank of England's target. It was 2% under Rishi Sunak. Those were the days.
The golden era.
The fag end of the last Tory government was it's almost idyllic by comparison. So, I mean, actually, there's been a lot of focus on these appointments and his poor judgment, most definitely. But my greatest concern is just what he's doing to the country, the awful policies. And it's like, he's like politically the broken clock that isn't even right twice a day. It's quite amazing how consistently wrong he is about everything. But, I'm really concerned about the fact that Rachel Reeves is still at number 11. And, this is the road to ruin. And especially for a progressive left-wing government that wants to invest in public services. So, the debt, unemployment, crime, so I think it's easy when you look at the kind of Westminster bubble and the sort of soap opera of Mandelson, it's a distraction from the biggest thing of all, which is people are really struggling and the country's just going down the pan.
Yeah, and it does feel, Tom, as if, certainly for a while anyway, and this looks set to continue, Labour MPs have really held the whip hand. The backbenchers who seem to, not know very much about anything, but catch the right vibes on certain policies are going to be driving either Starmer's policies if he stays on, or they will decide who takes over as Labour leader. And that's not good news for the nation.
No, there was one anonymous source in the media this week which said that the Labour backbenchers have responded to Labour becoming incredibly unpopular by demanding they do incredibly unpopular things. It's absolutely absurd and politically clueless, but it makes them feel good. And I think it's a striking example of the fact that this is a party which it might claim to be the party of the working class. Keir Starmer was trying to make that case earlier this week as he reset his administration for the 400th time, it feels like. But it's obviously not. I mean, it's the party of the kind of do-gooding middle classes. Over the course of this government, it's become the party of the privately educated, the most popular party amongst those people. So some people are impressed by what it is that they've been getting up to. I think what we've seen really at the root of all of this, although terrible political judgment is absolutely there. I mean, part of the reason that the outgoing Morgan McSweeney was so powerful was because Keir Starmer didn't, it's not that he made bad decisions, he didn't make decisions at all. He would outsource them to people. He would essentially use McSweeney as his brain because he didn't have a political one of his own. But the most that Keir Starmer could ever say about himself was that he was going to get things done. Remember, it was all about mission-driven government. He had those milestones, and there were the pillars, and there was the tick box, there was this, there was that. There was all these kind of very technocratic kind of punch card style approaches to how he's going to do things. But he's not delivered on any conceivable level. So I think
it's that thing. He didn't mean it.
I think it's also like sheer technocracy just isn't enough. Like, you can't just say, we are going to do this, we're going to do that. If you don't have any kind of more political depth and intent, it will just evaporate.
I think when he said we'll smash the gangs, he was lying or being disingenuous. And I think when he said we'll be the party of working people, I don't think he meant it, because if you were the party of working people, you wouldn't clobber employers with the national insurance tax raid, which has destroyed investment and hurt the companies that people work for.
the party of human rights lawyers in North London.
Well,
It's,
look, but I mean, it's an
you know,
interesting debate, isn't it? So you're suggesting that it's just that somehow a failure to execute policy because there's no ideology underpinning it. I just wonder whether he's an outrageous charlatan that didn't mean a word of it.
Yeah.
And that's been proved by his policies.
Yes, it's interesting because the recurring theme from all accounts of him internally, whether that's sympathetic, unsympathetic, is that he does not really have any politics at all, which is a staggering thing if you're the Prime Minister.
But that would be all right to have a technocrat that, like you say, at least I actually don't need politicians to have that much of an ideology as long as they can be. I mean, I think that the best example of a sort of managerial style Prime Minister was the aforementioned Rishi Sunak. And I know he was pretty ineffectual at the best of times. And I think, for example, his stop the boat strategy was also dishonest and disingenuous. He knew he wasn't going to stop the boats. But, he sat there in the dead of night with those spreadsheets and he pulled the levers that he needed to stabilize the economy, get inflation down, that kind of thing. And this is, I think, what we were being promised with Starmer, and I don't think we've got anything like that.
I think if you're a politician like, a prime minister or whatever, you need to know why you're doing things. You need to have a sense of purpose. You need to be able to prioritize things as well. And that's where, ideology, political philosophy comes in. And that's the thing that Starmer, doesn't seem to be able to handle.
So if you think about the people who we think of as the technocrats, whether that's technocratic politicians or ones who actually, run technocratic organisations like the European Union or what have you, they've got a tremendous track record of getting things catastrophically wrong. So it is the case they do have a kind of ideology of themselves. I mean, in some respects, Keir Starmer, to the extent he has a philosophy, is his devotion to international law in particular. I mean, he explicitly said that was what brought politics into the law for him, and it's been a kind of guiding principle against which he makes judgments. And that's an ideology of a sort, but it's one that, in its own way, is a way of not having to think about the big questions. You just defer to the international court. You just defer to this ruling, that ruling. The Chagos deal was a kind of example of that, rather than actually having to weigh up what are the national security concerns, what are the geopolitical concerns, what about the Chagosians. It's like, no, the court told us to do it, so we're going to have to do it. So that can inform things
He's
as well,
a master of doublespeak. Yeah. And he just, I think it's because he's a lawyer. And if you think about what a lawyer does, they're told, right, there's this guy called Ian and he stabbed his wife. We've got the evidence and everything, but your job is to defend him, and you go into bat for him and go, Ian didn't do it. He's one of the good guys. Misunderstood. And I think that Starmer, therefore, has sort of kept that lawyerly advocacy, that mentality, that approach as Prime Minister. And I'll just say, we're going to grow the economy. We're going to fix the foundations. It's Orwellian doublespeak. It doesn't mean anything. It's verbal diarrhea. Yeah. But I think what's more concerning is how dishonest it is. Because, I mean, does he really mean it when he says we're going to be the most pro-growth government in history, and then have so many policies that are identifiably and provably anti-growth? Yeah. I mean, is he stupid, or is he pathologically dishonest? And I think it has to be the latter.
I think that's a really good point, particularly because he contrasts himself so much with Boris Johnson to the point which really, really riled Boris Johnson, incidentally, it seems. He really didn't like the self-righteousness, apparently. And apparently you see this with Starmer as well. I think we talked about this on the show last week. The points at which he gets really wound up at PMQs or in interviews or whatever is when anyone's questioning his propriety. Like that really gets to him. But he's so dishonest. Like, we've written about it, we've made videos about it. He's taken one position and another on almost every conceivable front. I mean, when he was campaigning to be Labour leader, he was posing as just Jeremy Corbyn in the suit and tie. He said we need to make the case for freedom of movement. He naturally, tripped over the women's penis question time and time and time again, which is a strange image. Obviously he talked about, and then as soon as he got into the leadership, and then particularly when he got into campaigning for power, it was about immigration's too high, we've got to bring it down. Tony Blair told me women can't have penises, so I agree with that now. And on every conceivable front. It's even saying things like, you called Jeremy Corbyn a friend. I never called him that. He can't help but lie, incidentally, and it's a feature of him that often gets missed, because you get this take in the media which is, he's a nice guy, he's just in and over his depth, or he's an honest man but he's in over his depth. No, that's not what the record shows, not at all.
There's quite a funny piece in this recent edition of The Spectator, Tim Shipman, looking at where it went wrong for Labour, and there's a great quote from a Labour source saying, while we should have been preparing for government in opposition, we were arguing whether chicks should have dicks.
That's it.
And it kind of sums up a lot of where things have gone wrong. It went wrong well before they got into number 10.